Ladies and gentlemen, to introduce the President of the United States, please welcome Lisa Martin.
My name is Lisa Martin, and I am an English teacher at Papillion La Vista High School. More importantly, I am a mother of a one-year-old named Cooper. If you are a parent, you know that everything on the news suddenly becomes personal. How close was that robbery to my house? What grade did the Department of Education give my child's school? 2 more degrees to go until global warming really starts affecting us. As cliche as it sounds, having a child changes everything, and among other things, it made me feel helpless. Each night, Cooper would wake up and I would scroll through the news, checking up on current events, and I had this overwhelming sense of dread. Finally, one night I passed an article about the conservation efforts in Alaska and paused. Good news, something positive about the environment. After reading through this article, I thought about how I just want my son to know animals exist and will continue to exist. I want for him to go outside without a mask on and breathe in the air, and for him to experience catching snowflakes on his tongue and letting them melt on his eyelashes. Call it sleep deprivation or desperation, but something made me want to email the president that night, so I did, and the White House responded. I shared the letter with my students and told them they must be advocates for change if they want it. Even a mother's nighttime fears can make change happen. I told them that, perhaps, I had made someone pause and think, too. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, the 44th President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
Hello, Omaha! Thank you. Oh! Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Thank you, Omaha. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. That's so nice. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Go Mavericks. That's quite a place you got here. It's still got the new arena smell. A perfect spot for your hockey team to stage another run to the Frozen Four. I want to start off by thanking Lisa for the wonderful introduction and her hospitality in her living room. Give her a big round of applause. She did a great job. Before I came here, I stopped over at Lisa's place with her husband and her 1-year-old, and he was fired up and ready to go. He was bouncing around, and I was getting tired just watching him. I also want to thank Dr. Hank Bounds, the president of the University of Nebraska. Dr. John Christensen, Chancellor here at UNO. We've got Lieutenant Governor Mike Foley here. Your former Senator Ben Nelson. Your Congressman Brad Ashford. And all of you are here. There's a pretty good crowd. I love you back. I do. I do. This is so nice. What a wonderful welcome. Those of you who have seats, though, feel free to sit down. It's okay. But if you want to stay standing, that's fine too. Last night I gave my final State of the Union address. I promised that it was going to be shorter, and then it ended up just being like, I think, a minute shorter. So technically it was shorter, but it wasn't like as short as I was planning. But today I'm definitely going to be shorter. Yes, no, but whenever I give a State of the Union, I want to get out of Washington and talk to people, out in the country. And so the first place I decided to visit was Omaha. Part of the reason I wanted to come here is I've got a lot of friends like Brad and others, and I had not been here in a while. So the last time I was here for an event in Omaha was 2008. And that year, in the primary, I won the Nebraska caucus. And there were people, I saw some signs who called the city Omaha. And then in November of 2008, Joe Biden and I won one electoral vote here, which I was pretty excited about. And then 4 years later, I got whooped all across this state. It was not pretty. It was not pretty. But I love Nebraska anyway. There's something about the Midwest and its people and the way that folks pull together and the degree to which in this state the kind of politics I talked about last night has always been there. There's a civility and people treating each other with respect. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to come back here today. Because as I said last night, America's at its best when we see each other as one people. Not Democrat first, not Republican first, but Americans first. That's our priority. And that's harder to do during political season. I understand that. And you hear a bunch of folks right across the river. And I don't know if the TV ads drift over here, but they're kind of depressing. I mean, I like talking about hope and all the good stuff that was going on, and then you look at some of these ads and it's some doom and some gloom. It's like everybody's running around and saying, America's in decline and everything's scary and let's find somebody to blame. And the point I wanted to make, the core thing I wanted to say last night was, that's not the spirit that brought America so far. That's not how we traveled so far. And it's not what I see every day. That's not what I see in communities and neighborhoods all across this country. Now, what's true is we're all living through a time of extraordinary change. And that's always a little bit unsettling. And that's what Lisa wrote to me about at 4 a.m., which, I wanted to tell Lisa, you should get some sleep. But when you have a 1-year-old, that's what happens. But you heard Lisa talk about, she was wondering whether the world she grew up in would be just as prosperous and secure for her new baby as it was for her. But I want everybody to remember, America's been through big changes before. And each time we overcame our fears and we overcame our challenges. Each time we made change work for us. And each time we emerged stronger and better than we were before. That's what we do as Americans. We go through war and depression and all kinds of social and economic changes, but each time we've ended up better than we were before. Now, here's the thing. Progress is not inevitable. You got to work for it. Somebody's stealing my lines up here. It's the result of the choices that we have to make together, and we've got to make some choices. Do we respond to these changes with fear, and do we turn on each other, or do we face the future with confidence in who we are and what we stand for and all the incredible things we can get done together? So I just want to repeat the 4 big questions that I think we have to answer as a country. And this is true whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican. You should think about, and we have to have good answers for these 4 questions, regardless of who's president, regardless of who controls Congress. Number 1, how do we make sure that this new economy works for everybody and not just some people? That's question number 1. Number 2, a related question. How do we make sure that the spirit of innovation is used to solve some of our biggest challenges? Number 3, how do we keep America safe and lead the world without becoming the world's policeman? Number 4, and maybe most important, is how do we have a politics that reflects the best in us and not the worst? So on the economy, the first thing I try to remind people is think about where we were 7 years ago. We were, because people forget, and some of you were in grade school. And I have no gray hair. So just to refresh your memory here for a second, we were in the worst economic crisis of our lifetimes. I was going back to look at my first State of the Union address, where I had to basically remind everybody that the money in their banks were safe. I had to tell folks that it was going to be okay. That's how fragile things were. But to paraphrase something that a friend of mine, who I guess people know around here, named Warren Buffett, once said, no one ever benefited by betting against America. And because of the grit and the resilience of the American people, because of hard work, because businesses got going, and because, frankly, we made some pretty good policy decisions, we now have the strongest, most durable economy in the world. We're in the midst of the longest streak of private sector job creation in history. 14 million new jobs, around 40,000 right here in Omaha and the surrounding areas. Our national unemployment rate has been cut in half. It's down to 5%. It's below 3% here in Nebraska. So our starting point has to be, things are not terrible. If your unemployment rate is at 5 and here in Omaha it's below 3. Now that does not mean that things haven't been changing in profound ways. And that's also what I had to talk about. Look, it's changed to the point where even folks who have jobs, and even when the economy is growing, it's harder for hardworking families to pull themselves out of poverty. It's harder for young people to start out on their careers, especially if they've got too much student loan debt. It's tougher for workers to retire when they want to. And there's more inequality, and upward mobility has stalled, and that offends our fundamental American belief that anybody who works hard can get ahead. So people agree that real opportunity in the new economy requires everybody gets a great education and the training they need to land a good job. And we've been working on that. Over the past 7 years, we've increased early childhood education. We've boosted high school graduation rates. We're training and graduating more engineers and folks in other fields that we need to grow the economy. But we've got to build on that progress. We've got to create opportunity for every child, which means pre-K for everybody. It means hands-on computer classes and math classes for the jobs of the future. It means we should recruit and support and lift up great teachers who are doing great things for our kids. And it means that no student should be priced out of a college education or loaded up with crippling debt. So one of the things, I didn't try to list all the proposals I would like to see happen this year. That's why you go to the website, whitehouse.gov, which now works, I promise. But we should guarantee 2 years of community college at no cost for every responsible student. That's what real opportunity looks like in a new economy. And then, once we've made sure everybody has a great education, as folks move throughout their lives, we've got to pair real opportunity with real security. Basic benefits should be just as mobile as everything else is today. I was talking to Lisa's dad and mom. They were there. And mostly they just wanted to talk about their adorable one-year-old grandson. But they've been married for 44 years. And Dad had worked at a company that produces cement and ships it around the country. And he had worked there for 40 years, and he's still working there. And Mom had been a nurse, and she'd retired. But that kind of career path where somebody's at one place for that long with good benefits, that pension, health care, that's not going to be the pattern for most of the young people who are here today. And so the idea is, how do we make sure that even if you're in this new economy where you're changing jobs, you're retraining, you're starting your own business, you have some basic security. And that's what the Affordable Care Act, by the way, is all about. That's what it's all about. The goal wasn't to replace employer-based care. If you've got health care on the job, that's great. But if you lose your job, or you have to go back to school, or you want to start a new business, or you're starting a new job and you've got a pre-existing condition, you should have health care options. You should have health care options. The same is true for some of the other programs that we have that haven't been adapted to this new economy. So I mentioned unemployment insurance right now. When folks lose their jobs, unemployment insurance right now is not available for a lot of folks who had been working part-time or were temporary workers. And if you take a job that doesn't pay as much, sometimes you get penalized. there should be a system of wage insurance so that you can still pay the bills and make up some of the difference as you transition into a new career. And if we update the unemployment insurance system, that'll encourage more folks to retrain for new, better paying jobs. And when they change jobs, you should be able to save for your retirement, even though you didn't stay in one job for 30 years. There should be a way for you to take your retirement savings with you. So now, having said all that, somebody here said folks need bigger paychecks. And part of what's happened in this new economy is workers, frankly, just have less leverage. Because companies move more, it means that they can offshore, they can move to a new state. It means that a lot of times they're under more severe competition. And that gets a lot of folks frustrated. But part of what I've been concerned about as I've been listening to some of the political rhetoric is, let's make sure that we don't blame people who have nothing to do with the fact that wages aren't growing. Let's try to solve the problem, but not misidentify the problem. So, for example, let's agree that working families will not get a bigger paycheck by us eliminating all the reforms that we made on Wall Street, or by letting big oil and hedge funds make their own rules. You know, that's not going to help working families. Now, as I said last night, families on food stamps did not cause the financial crisis. You know, we've got to reform our broken immigration system, but immigrants are not the reason wages haven't gone up. Those decisions are made in boardrooms around the country. You know, you guys aren't the ones who are, I don't think you've got offshore accounts that allow you to dodge paying your taxes. You know, if you do, then the IRS wants to talk about you. But in this new economy, I believe workers, startups, small businesses, they need more of a voice, more of a say, not less. The rules should work for working Americans. And I'm going to spend some of the time this year lifting up a lot of companies who figured out if they pay good wages, provide good benefits, treat their customers well, are environmentally responsible, they can also make really good profits. And it's good for everybody. It's good for their shareholders and customers and communities. And a lot of our best corporate citizens are our most creative. Which brings me to the second question that I raised yesterday. How do we make sure that we continue to be an innovation economy? And how do we use innovation to meet some of our biggest challenges? Some of you heard me talk about our space program. 60 years ago, the Russians beat us to space. And how do we respond? We didn't go, oh my God, America's in decline and we're doomed. We didn't say, that's not actually a spaceship up there. That's a comet. We didn't argue about the science. We didn't shrink our R&D budget. We built a space program almost overnight. 12 years later, we were walking on the moon. All right? I think my favorite movie last year was The Martian. And I like space, but there was one line Matt Damon delivered where he said, I'm just going to science the heck out of this. He didn't say heck, but you get the point. But that's the American spirit, right? Okay, let's solve the problem. Sometimes they're tough problems, but we can figure this out. We can figure this out. That's the spirit we need today. That's why I put Joe Biden in charge of us figuring out how to cure cancer. He's working with scientists and doctors and obviously with families who've been affected because he knows what they've gone through. That's why we've got to make sure that American businesses produce and sell the energy of the future. You know, we should keep pressing forward with the clean energy that's going to be creating new jobs for decades to come and transition from dirty energy. We shouldn't be subsidizing the past. We should invest in the future. That puts us ahead of the curve. And that's how we're going to keep leading the world to combat climate change and protect this planet, Lisa's son, your kids, and your grandkids. There's nothing more important than making sure that future generations are able to enjoy the incredible bounty that God's given us. Third question, how do we keep America safe and strong without either isolating ourselves or trying to nation build all over the world? Oh, well, I can't do that. I can't do that because of the Constitution, and I can't do that because Michelle would kill me. So, but look, just as all this talk about how the American economy is terrible is just not true, it's also not true when you hear folks talking about how America is so weak. We aren't just the strongest economy in the world, we are far and away the most powerful nation on the planet. Nobody can match our troops. Nobody can match what we can do to mobilize to solve problems around the world. And when I said that, by the way, last night, it was strange that some in the chamber didn't agree and applaud with that. I mean, you know, that's kind of a weird thing. I didn't say that it's the strongest in the world because of me. I mean, I understand why they wouldn't want to give me credit for it, which is true. It's because the United States of America for 250 years has been working to make us the strongest, but that should not be a controversial statement. Right? I mean, we can all clap about that. But that's how crazy our politics has gotten sometimes. Right? That's how crazy our politics has gotten. Where we now feel obliged to not root for America doing good. So when you hear people peddling this fiction about our enemies getting stronger, America getting weaker, when you hear folks say we can, solve challenges just by looking meaner and talking tougher, or carpet bombing wherever we want, that's just hot air. It's bluster. It's not serious. It's not serious. There's another word for it that starts with a B. It's